How can something as natural as closeness feel so terrifying, so impossible to trust? We fall into patterns, longing for intimacy but pushing it away, reaching for relief in work, in substances, in endless distractions, never realizing these are echoes of an old story written in us long before we could choose. Why do our bodies tighten at tenderness? Why does comfort slip through our fingers the moment we grasp it? By the end of this talk, you'll see how an unseen past has been shaping your present and what you can do next. When we look at the struggles we carry into adulthood, whether it's trouble trusting others, feeling unworthy of love, or falling into habits we can't seem to break, the question isn't what's wrong with me, the real question is what happened to me. Because none of us are born broken. We come into the world wired for connection, wired to seek safety in the arms of another. But when that safety isn't there, when love feels unpredictable, or our feelings are dismissed, or we're left alone with fears too big for a child to hold, that absence leaves a mark. Childhood trauma doesn't always mean a dramatic event. Sometimes it's the quiet, invisible wounds, emotional neglect, growing up in a home where your tears were ignored, where your joy was too much, or where you learned that who you truly were wasn't welcome. These experiences shape the nervous system in ways we don't choose. They teach us to hide parts of ourselves, to numb feelings, or to stay constantly alert just to get by. And here's the most important thing, those patterns were intelligent, they were survival. A child who learns to stay small, to avoid conflict, or who escapes into fantasy to endure loneliness is not weak, they are resourceful. The problem isn't that we adapted. The problem is that the very strategies that once kept us safe are still running the show long after the danger is gone. We shut down when someone gets too close, even though part of us longs to be held. We overwork or overeat or overgive, not because we're flawed, but because once upon a time those strategies gave us relief. So when we talk about healing, we're not trying to erase what happened. We're learning to see those adaptations with compassion, to recognize that every one of us did the best we could with what we had. And together we can begin to gently loosen the grip of the past so that love doesn't have to feel like a battlefield anymore. She always laughed it off when her friends pointed it out. "You have a type," they teased, and she rolled her eyes, pretending not to notice the sting. But deep down, she knew they were right. Every man she let into her life had the same pattern. Charming at first, attentive in just the right ways, but within months, distant. Calls unanswered, silences stretched too long, affection given in crumbs rather than meals. And still, she stayed. She told herself she was being patient, that love takes work, that maybe she was just too much. And Michael, their first date was easy. He asked about her favorite books, and when she spoke, he actually listened. He smiled at the small things like how she tapped her glass when nervous, and she felt seen. But weeks later, his warmth cooled. She would wait hours for reply to a simple text. When she asked if something was wrong, he would shrug and say, "I'm just busy." She'd sit at the edge of his couch, trying not to lean too close, afraid of pushing him away. Nights ended with polite hugs instead of lingering embraces. And every time she thought about leaving, something inside whispered, "Don't. This is love. This is how it feels." And it wasn't just Michael. Before him, it was Danielle, who worked late every night and never noticed how she lit candles before he came over. Before Danielle, it was Amir, who promised to call and always forgot. She could recall the hollow ache in her chest each time she realized she was more invested than they were, and yet she couldn't stop herself from choosing men who were never fully there. If she had looked closely, she might have seen where it began. A childhood of waiting by the window for a father who promised he'd come but rarely did. A mother who, while loving in her own way, often drifted into silence, too tired to notice the small offerings of her daughter's heart. The little girl she once was learned early. Don't expect too much. Don't ask for more. And whatever love you get, even if it's thin and far between, cling to it, because it might vanish. From her story, 3 truths come forward. First, the patterns of adult love are not random. They echo the rhythms we learned in childhood, where closeness was inconsistent or conditional. Second, when affection was scarce, we learned to mistake emotional distance for normalcy, even comfort. And third, the part of us that clings to what hurts isn't broken. It's the same part that once tried desperately to keep connection alive, no matter how fragile. And yet, even as these patterns repeat, there is another possibility waiting. Because once we begin to see the old story, we can start to write a new one. The question becomes, how do we step out of the cycle that once defined love and into something that finally feels safe? It looked like he had it all together. Always the first one in the office, emails answered before sunrise, deadlines never missed. To his colleagues, he was reliable, sharp, unstoppable. But what they didn't see was what happened when the meetings ended and the silence crept in. The moment he got home, he'd pour a drink, not because he loved the taste, but because it softened the edges. The television would hum in the background, while his phone screen lit up with endless scrolling. Hours disappeared this way, one distraction stacked on top of another, until he finally collapsed into bed, empty, but numb. He told himself it wasn't a problem. After all, he was functioning, more than functioning. Promotions came, friends praised his discipline, and his family pointed to him as an example of success. But late at night, when the glow of the screen faded and the buzz of alcohol wore off, a quiet truth pressed in. Beneath the busyness, beneath the scrolling, beneath the glass in his hand, there was a loneliness he couldn't name, a sense that no matter how hard he worked or how much he achieved, something vital was missing. What looked like addiction from the outside, workaholism, endless digital distraction, one drink turning into 3, was in truth an attempt at self-soothing. Not weakness, not a moral flaw, but a survival strategy. He wasn't asking himself, why am I addicted? The deeper question was, why do I hurt? And when he looked back, the answer was there in the shadows of his childhood. The home where affection was scarce, where achievement was the only currency of worth, where tenderness was something he longed for but rarely received. His work ethic had been born from that soil. His drive to keep busy was the armor he had learned to wear. The substances and scrolling were not the disease. They were the bandages covering a wound that had never been allowed to heal. When we see this through the lens of compassion, the picture changes. Addiction is not about bad choices, it's about pain. Every coping mechanism, no matter how destructive it looks now, once served a purpose. It gave relief, gave distance from feelings too heavy to carry alone. And the truth is, many of us live this way, wearing success on the outside while quietly trying to anesthetize what aches within. So the question isn't whether we distract, numb, or avoid. That's human. The question is, can we begin to turn toward the hurt with gentleness instead of endlessly running from it? And if so, what might we discover about ourselves if instead of asking what's wrong with me, we ask what happened to me? I'll leave you with 2 questions you can carry with you. When I reach for my distraction, my phone, my work, my drink, what feeling am I trying not to face? And what would it take for me to give that part of myself the kindness it has always needed? Imagine your body like a house with a smoke alarm. Its job is to protect you, to warn you of danger. But here's the thing, if that alarm was wired during a time when there really was fire everywhere, it might keep going off even when all you're doing is toasting bread. That's what implicit memory is. It's the kind of memory you don't think about, the kind you can't even put into words, because it lives not in your storytelling mind, but in your nervous system, your muscles, your breath. The body remembers what the mind forgets. When you were small, if you felt unsafe or unseen, your body took notes. It learned, stay on guard, keep scanning, don't relax. And even now, decades later, you might find yourself snapping at someone you love, or shrinking in a meeting, or feeling your chest tighten for no clear reason. That isn't you overreacting, it's the smoke alarm still doing its best to protect you from a danger that isn't actually here anymore. Think about a simple example. Maybe your partner comes home late without texting. Instantly your stomach knots, your heart races, your thoughts spin. Do they still care? Am I about to be abandoned? On the surface, it's just a late train or a missed message, but for the nervous system, it can light up like an old fire. If, as a child, you were often left waiting, often unsure if someone would come back, your body remembers. It's not irrational, it makes perfect sense. And here's the hopeful part. Just as the alarm can be retrained, so can we. Our bodies are not frozen in time. With awareness and gentleness, we can begin to show our nervous systems that the danger has passed, that it's safe to soften again. The old memories may live in our cells, but so can new ones. Memories of safety, of connection, of love that stays. The very first step is awareness. Not fixing, not forcing, just noticing. You can start with a simple journal. Each day, write down moments that stirred something in you. What happened, who you were with, and how you felt in your body. Over time, patterns begin to emerge. You may see that certain situations, voices, or silences light up the same old wound. Awareness is powerful because it turns the invisible into something you can finally see. When those patterns show up, try asking yourself gentle questions instead of judgmental ones. What am I feeling right now? Where might this feeling come from? What did I need then, and what do I need now? This kind of compassionate inquiry shifts the focus from self-blame to understanding, and when we understand, we soften. In the moment of a trigger, give your body a pause. One easy practice is to place your feet on the ground. Take one slow breath and let your eyes land on 3 things around you. This grounds the nervous system, reminding it that you are here, not back in the past. Even 30 seconds of this can begin to change the tone inside. Boundaries can feel daunting, but start small. Choose one boundary to practice this week. Maybe saying, I'll call you back later, instead of picking up when you're drained. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. They teach your nervous system that it's allowed to take space and still be safe. And don't do this alone. Identify one safe connection to lean into, a trusted friend, a support group, or a therapist. Healing happens in relationship because safety is remembered in the presence of another. Just one steady connection can begin to rewrite the old script. Each of these steps matters because they give you new experiences of safety, clarity, and choice. Exactly what was missing when the wound first formed. And one gentle reminder, these steps can be powerful. But if you find yourself overwhelmed, please reach out for professional support. You don't have to carry this work by yourself. Both stories, the woman who kept reaching for distant partners and the man who numbed himself with busyness and screens, come from the same soil, early roots that grew in rocky ground. And yet, even roots that crack under pressure can still carry water, can still draw in light. Healing is like that light slowly finding its way through the cracks, reminding us that brokenness is not the end of the story. With tools like awareness, compassionate questions, grounding breaths, boundaries, and safe connections, we begin to let that light travel upward. Change doesn't arrive overnight, it comes in slow, steady ripples. Safety always comes first. And every small win, a pause before reacting, one honest boundary, one moment of softening, is proof that the old story is not the only story. If all of this feels heavy, let me offer you some relief. You don't need to fix everything at once. You don't need to heal the whole past by tomorrow. Healing happens in small human steps. So here's your invitation for this week. Choose just one moment each day to pause before reacting. Put your feet on the floor, take one slow breath, and ask yourself, what am I really needing right now?